Well, I made it. Okay, thanks for watching. Just kidding. Behind me is the Portland Head Lighthouse, which, as the name suggests, means I am in Portland, Maine. It is the oldest lighthouse in the area and the first one built by the US. More importantly, it means that I have made it. After just over 5 weeks, over 5,000 miles, I've made it all the way to the Atlantic Ocean. Not bad. Of course, as I implied in my intro, not quite done yet. Obviously, I have to get back. But I'm here for a few weeks. Oh, well, I'm near here for a few weeks, staying with my folks in New Hampshire, and then I'm going to make my way south, and then, obviously, the long haul west. My original plan for this video was to sit on the rocks with a nice ocean background and tell you about my trip so far. But the ocean is loud, louder than me, and even though I asked it quite nicely, it refused to remain silent for any length of time. No worries. I think you're all used to my disembodied voice by now. From one perspective, this is the halfway point in my trip. I started at the Pacific Ocean, and now I'm at the Atlantic. So in terms of miles, this is about halfway. Time-wise, not so much. I'm aiming to be home in about 3 weeks once I leave New Hampshire. Far less time than it took me to get here. But yeah, looking at a map, this is as good of a place as any to reflect on the trip so far. It took me longer to get into the groove for this trip than any in recent memory. I guess that's not too surprising. I was certainly out of practice, having spent over a year at home. Plus, there was the you-know-what going on. I think another aspect of the rocky start was how this was my first cross-country road trip where I was also working. My first trip, LA to Boston, was during college, and then Boston to LA after I graduated. In 2010, I did a big loop during the brief window where I was unemployed but not yet freelancing. So in all those cases, all I needed to do was drive. Normally when I'm traveling, and I mean the type of traveling I did for years before the pandemic, it was actually fairly easy to budget time for work. Most days I'd wake up, work for a few hours, then explore wherever I am, and then work some more when I would get back at night. If I needed a day to change locations, it was almost always by plane, train, or bus, so I'd just sit, watch the world go by, and work between naps. With this trip, I've spent 3 or more days each week just driving, and after a day of driving, my brain is in no place to be creative or answer emails. So that's half the week, which means I need to squeeze working and seeing the sights in the other half. Finding the right work-trip balance is proving elusive. Honestly, I'm not sure I'll actually figure it out, though the time I'm spending at my dad's house is letting me catch up on a lot of work, so that's good. Fortunately, the positives far outweigh the negatives. This trip has been everything I'd hoped and needed. I spent most of the 6 years before the pandemic as a digital nomad, traveling and working all over the world. Everyone has had it hard in the last year plus, and this was how mine was hard. I'm in no way saying that's better or worse than anyone else, I'm just saying it was a heartbreaking adjustment. So I'm not ashamed to say that I cried that first day, finally leaving Los Angeles after so long, and as rough as that first day was for other reasons, every day since has gotten way better. I finally started seeing new and gorgeous things. It all started to gel really when I got to South Dakota. I was able to slow down, explore, and not feel rushed. Or at least, not as rushed. The Badlands was definitely a standout, as was the drive up to North Dakota. The great unknown, to me anyway. The thrill of the new is incredibly addictive, and I'd missed that rush. Teddy Roosevelt National Park was another gem, not least because I wasn't sure when I'd ever get to see it. And then, of course, there was seeing my parents. It had been nearly 2 years since I'd seen them. I talk to them all the time, but it's hard to oversell the awesomeness of a good hug. There's also just the drive itself. Long drives have always been extremely cathartic to me. There's something about the steady drone of the engine, the roar of the tires, all drowned out by blasting tunes and my beloved, by me anyway, baritone voice. Believe it or not, there's only a handful of videos left in this series. As you might know, my main gig is doing photo tours of various museums for CNET. I have a bunch of those planned in the next few weeks, more than national parks. Plus, as I mentioned in an earlier video, east of the Mississippi, so many roads are either ugly urban sprawl or boring tree-lined highways. So I'm pretty sure I'll be condensing quite a few driving days into single videos. But before I'm done, I'm hoping to spend a few days, maybe a week, in the Rockies, before I make my final push home. Thanks for watching. See you next time.